Growing up in Chicago in the 80s, I'd watch my dad get ready for work as an HVAC repairman every morning. He'd put on his Sears Roebuck work shirts and trousers and black steel-toe shoes and throw various tools and lunch into a giant heavy canvas bag that he'd drag into his van. I thought about this recently while I was pruning my closet, something that I like to do around this time of year, and I was struck by how much of what I own is actually workwear inspired and has been with me consistently year after year. I thought about my dad and his trove of oil-stained and worn work clothes, and it occurred to me how much of an impact this has had on me. I'm certain that on a subconscious level, these details of his daily work routine resonated and stuck with me for all these years. I didn't realize it then, but I'm sure all of this shaped my entire approach to clothing and personal style, which over the years has more and more focused on timeless classics and letting go of seasonal trends. At 56 going on 57, I find myself more and more drawn to identifying a more permanent sense of style that lies outside of fashion, one that I feel comfortable in, but that also expresses who I am and my values. So this episode of Peter's Prism is essentially a dedicated love letter to workwear, a chance for me to expound upon why these clothes resonate and hopefully help you feel a deeper connection with your own ties to workwear. So with that, let's get to work. Hey everyone, welcome back to Peter's Prism. Now, before we get started, I want to give a quick shout out to A.W. Sylvester's An Informal Guide to Workwear. This little book was a huge inspiration for this video, and it's a quick read with wonderful illustrations by Michael Parkin. If you want to dive deeper into workwear history and culture, it's absolutely worth buying. I'll provide a link to it in the description box below. Now, before we get into it, I'd like to ask that if you find this video at all helpful or informative, please don't forget to give it a big thumbs up and hit that subscribe button. Now, there are a million examples of workwear staples, but for this video, I'm going to limit myself to 5 of my favorite things: the chore coat, the chambray shirt, corduroy fabric, work boots, and the tote bag. These are items that have remained relatively unchanged for upwards of 100 years. I'll talk about their history, examples of modern inspiration, how and why you'd want to incorporate them into your closet, and then close out with some thoughts about how to think about workwear as part of your own personal style expression. The chore coat dates back to 19th century France, when workers needed garments that were protective, practical, durable, and cheap. It was traditionally crafted from heavier fabrics like denim, heavy cotton drill, or moleskin, with a loose fit, button front, and roomy pockets originally meant for tools and tobacco tins. The French called it bleu de travail, literally working blues, named for the deep indigo color achieved through a natural dyeing process. It became so iconic that it later inspired the American term blue-collar worker, and by the early 20th century, it became synonymous as the visual uniform of the French working class. It's a testament to its design that it survives to this day as the modern chore coat, a direct descendant that retains the same functional DNA. Durable, easy to wear as an extra layer, and now valued as a timeless style staple beyond its utility. From a design perspective, it's an almost perfect layering piece. The boxy fit allows for easy layering. The patch pockets that were once for tools and tobacco tins are now the perfect home for your wallet, phone, pens, bullet journals, AirPods, etc. Details of modern chore coats vary from brand to brand, but they typically feature at least 3 large open patch pockets on the exterior and sometimes an internal chest patch pocket. It's got a simple and straightforward construction that is timeless and will not drastically change. The thing I love about workwear items like this is that there are few details that will date the piece. Buy it once and you can hold onto it for as long as the fabric remains intact. From a style perspective, it looks just as good over a simple t-shirt and chinos as it does over a button-down shirt. Sometimes I like to dress it up even further and kind of think of it in the same way I'd look at a casual blazer thrown over an easygoing shirt and tie. It goes with jeans, chinos, and even more tailored trousers. It's stylish, but non-threatening and can work in almost any office business casual situation. So when I pull a look together with a chore coat, I like to think of it as a detail of a multifaceted look. It provides texture in a different way than something like an OCBD might. I like its history and its references, but I'm not trying to look like an old-timey factory worker, so mixing it up with modern items, different colors and textures, things like that, helps keeps things interesting and unique to you, and keeps you from looking like you're wearing a Halloween costume. I try to break up the color and fabric because it's a layering piece that lends texture all by itself. I've linked to a few chore coats that I'm a big fan of in the description box below, including this one, so make sure you check them out. Chambray gets its name from Chambray, a city in northern France where they first made cambric, its predecessor fabric, back in the 1500s. Cambric was a fine linen cloth, the kind someone might use to make lace work. Chambray happened when the fabric shifted to cotton and picked up that signature look with colored threads running one way and white threads the other. A lot of people confuse chambray with denim, but they're two totally different fabrics. Chambray is a plain weave where the threads just alternate over and under, creating a softer, lighter, and more breathable fabric, while denim is a twill weave. If you look closely at your jeans, you'll see a diagonal pattern where two or more threads go over, then under one, resulting in a fabric that's tighter, more durable, and heavier. And the easiest way to tell if a shirt is chambray or denim is to just look at both sides of the fabric. Chambray should look the same in reverse, whereas denim's wrong side is noticeably lighter. I did a whole video just on chambray shirts, so check that out if you haven't seen it already. I'll share a link to it in the description. The chambray shirt we know today got its start as a work shirt in the late 1800s. They looked more like pullover shirts and were made from fabrics like moleskin, sateen, as well as cotton chambray, which caught on because it kept you cool when you were doing hard labor all day. By the early 20th century, the work shirt took on more and more refined details like triple stitching, curved yokes, and full-length button plackets to make it easier to take it on and off. A smaller cigarette pocket was introduced to complement the bigger pocket for tobacco tins and rolling papers. The US Navy officially started issuing chambray shirts in 1901. Sailors wore them everywhere through World War II, and this is when they truly jumped into the mainstream. What kept the chambray shirt relevant for all these years is how versatile it is. It's more relaxed than the finer feel of a dress shirt, but not as rough and heavy as denim, even though it shares the same indigo spirit we love. There's an easygoing quality to it. And like a lot of good workwear, it actually gets better with age. Softer, more character, even when it starts to show wear. And that's why it's one of my favorites. It's this perfect middle ground for wardrobes that don't need to be formal, but where you still want to look like you care. It's got a rugged spirit that sets it apart from, say, something like an OCBD or a point collar dress shirt. If you don't have one, please get one. A chambray shirt injects a different kind of character than a standard OCBD, and you can pair it with just about anything. Wear it with chinos, wool flannel trousers, fatigues. I like to throw mine on with OG 107s all the time. It works great under sport coats, sweaters, and cardigans. You can roll the sleeves up, wear it untucked. Sometimes I like to button it all the way up under a light jacket. It works in almost any context that isn't formal. If you're concerned about how to style one, I'd say the one thing to be careful about is doing a head-to-toe denim look with chambray shirting. Now, I love a Canadian tuxedo and I love head-to-toe denim and chambray, but it's not for everyone and I acknowledge that. I don't think there's anything wrong with pairing chambray with jeans, but generally speaking, it becomes less conspicuous when you mix up texture, color, and fabric more intentionally. So for example, wearing chambray with fatigues under a wool cardigan, that comes together for a look that's intentionally more varied. Pretty much every menswear brand makes some version of a chambray shirt now, and they're flattering on most guys. I've got a few favorites that I'll link to in the description box below. You might not realize it, but corduroy fabric has its origins in workwear. Before I knew better, I often thought of it as something a little fancier or elevated. But actually, corduroy is a very durable textile that has a distinct texture by weaving extra sets of fiber into fabric to form those vertical ridges or the cords. The cut ends of these yarns is what creates that finished, soft texture. And this process makes the fabric much more durable, and as a result, made it good for hard labor during the Industrial Revolution. The fabric lasted longer, provided better insulation, and despite its warmth, maintained breathability. The word corduroy comes from the words cord, or rope, and duroy, which is a coarse woolen cloth from 19th century England. It is that old, though it truly became popular much later in the 20th century. You'll often hear corduroy being characterized by wales, as in wide wale corduroy. That refers to the number of cords in the fabric per inch. So something that has 6 wales per inch is going to be much chunkier looking and feeling than, say, 12 wale. And generally speaking, the wider the wale of your corduroy, the more likely it's going to be intended for the lower half of your body. Wide wale works great for pants, for example, but maybe not so much for shirting, which is where you'd want something like needle cord that will drape more like a cotton flannel. So when I'm shopping for corduroy, I like to pay attention to the wale count. As I mentioned, wide wale can work great for classic workwear pieces like short coats or trousers. It's durable, substantial, and unmistakably corduroy, while needle cord works great in shirting and reads much more refined. I think the key to wearing corduroy corduroy well is treating it as the textural anchor of your outfit. Have a corduroy element, but then balance it with other fabrics and textures. And that's one reason why I think corduroy trousers look so good against chambray, wool, or even something simple like a t-shirt. You'd be surprised at how many garments have corduroy variations like the denim trucker jacket. This can also be a great alternative to introduce it into your wardrobe. The beauty of corduroy is its versatility across seasons. It's substantial enough for fall and winter, but breathable enough for spring. And like good denim, it improves with age. The nap softens and the color deepens with wear. This is a workwear element that has been with us for a very long time. It started as a cheap fabric that was then engineered to last longer and under harder conditions, which made it ideal for folks who couldn't afford to replace their clothes more frequently. And these are just a few of the reasons why I love corduroy so much and why I believe it belongs in every man's wardrobe today. I'd be amiss if my love letter to workwear did not include work boots, but I want to be clear that when I say work boots, I'm not talking about the kind that meet OSHA safety standards. Those boots serve a real purpose on actual job sites. What I want to get into is what's referred to as heritage boots, or modern interpretations of boots that workers actually wore in the early 20th century. Brands like Red Wing, Alden, and Grant Stone take the look and construction of traditional work boots, but they're designed more for style and durability and how they age, rather than having to survive industrial hazards. And speaking of Red Wing, this discussion can't really happen without talking about this brand's history, which dates back to 1905 in Red Wing, Minnesota. In the early 1920s, Red Wing introduced their Irish setter boot, designed specifically for hunters, which then caught on with laborers like electricians who needed the non-conductive white rubber sole. In the 1950s, they modified the boot and introduced the Model 877 with its wedge sole intended to keep tar from getting caught underneath asphalt workers' boots. The 877 and 875 aesthetically are classic boots for workwear fans. Their reddish-orange color and ecru wedge sole pairs perfectly with selvage denim or the muted olive of a pair of OG 107s. So Red Wing got its start making actual work boots that meet safety standards, and they still do today. But in 2007, the company launched their Red Wing Heritage line of boots, which are more intended as lifestyle boots and shoes inspired by 20th century design. But make no mistake, their heritage boots use the same construction methods like Goodyear welts so that they can be resoled, full grain leathers, and all handcrafted in their own factories. These are boots that are built to last for a very long time. The only thing that separates them from actual work shoes is their absence of safety certifications. The boots I want to get into a little bit deeper today are mine, and they fall into the category of heritage work boots with mock or moccasin toe detailing. Mock toe construction, as seen in the 877 and 875 Red Wings, was originally intended to provide extra toe protection, more room in the toe box, and added flexibility from that U-shaped seam across the top. On some modern heritage boots like the Alden Indy, the mock toe stitching is purely decorative, but on boots like Red Wings, it's still part of the actual construction. The Alden Indy might be my favorite heritage work boot. It's built on their True Balance last, or the foot-shaped mold that shoemakers use to build boots. This particular last was designed for work boots that needed to be comfortable all day long, and these are indeed. The toe box is super roomy and there's great arch support. As you can tell, the Indy sits somewhere between a heritage work boot and something that's a bit more refined, and that's part of why I love it so much. Yes, the mock toe stitching might be purely decorative, but I'm about as far from the kind of person who'd need the benefit that real mock toe construction affords. Grant Stone is a modern brand. It was founded in 2016 that offers heritage work boots styles at very reasonable prices. They offer Goodyear welted boots in multiple widths. The Grant Stones I have are called the Brass Boot, and it's built on their roomy Floyd last, which has a very generous toe box. It's slightly more substantial than the Alden Indy in size and shape, but it's hard to beat the materials and constructions of a boot like this at $435. The hand-stitched mock toe detailing here is again for aesthetic purposes, and the leather is Horween Chrome XL, which is an oil tan leather, and that's something you'd normally find on boots costing much more. So when I think about the appeal of boots like this, I think it's because I know they share a design legacy that's rooted in tradition and history, and they haven't really changed aesthetically. I know they are constructed in a way that will allow me to resole them multiple times as I wear them, and the quality of the leather assures me that they will develop a patina and character in a way that you're not going to achieve in cheaper shoes of lesser materials. And they're comfortable. You're not likely to find this combination of qualities in cheaper made boots. In the same way I talked about chambray shirts and chore coats, these are things that have legitimate working class roots roots that over time have become ingrained in everyday casual menswear. And I love that continuity. These aren't some strange fashion fads that no one's going to remember a year from now. These are going to stay with you for a very long time. Now, when I put looks together with these, I start with the boots. Because they're bulkier than regular shoes and because of their historical connotations, I don't want to wear them with just anything. For example, some pants just don't break very well over them, and I don't want to pair something light like linen pants. I'd rather find fabrics and textures that have a bit more heft and complement their rugged nature. Things like darker, regular fit denim work really well. Corduroy trousers pair really nicely with dressier boots like the Indy. I think fatigues work really well here, and I'm a huge fan of mixing military and workwear aesthetics. And to dress things up a bit, I like to go with textured trousers like wool flannel, cotton canvas, even moleskin. Pairing them with unstructured blazers in tweed or unlined cotton can also work well. Just don't try to pair them with things more business formal. For shirting, chambray, denim, or OCBDs or anything that has a more rugged quality will make the most sense for me. Finer fabric dress shirts or linens don't feel quite right. And color-wise, because boots like this generally come in warmer, earthier tones like browns and burgundies, they pair really nicely against the blues, khakis, olives, and other similar neutrals you probably already have in your closet. Beyond the Aldens and the Grant Stones, I'll share a list of other boots I think are very handsome and worth your consideration. I'll put those links in the description box as well. The term tote bag, which of course we use to describe a large, typically unfastened sack with parallel handles that are sewn into its sides, dates back to 1900. So this is an accessory that is, at the very least, more than 125 years old. There are countless versions of totes made of many different kinds of materials, but the one I want to focus on for this video is the same one that was featured in A.W. Sylvester's book. And it's the version that was created by L.L. Bean in 1944 that was called Bean's Ice Carrier. It was originally designed to transport 200 plus pounds of heavy block ice using an almost indestructible thick canvas. It featured a double layered bottom and handles with reinforced stitching. L.L. Bean rebranded this very bag as the Boat and Tote in 1965, and it quickly expanded its audience to become an iconic everyday accessory known for its durability. The bag continues to be made in Maine, and you can get them in many different color combinations and sizes. And over the last 60 years since its rebranding, the Boat and Tote has been here, the design staying essentially the same, adopted by men and women alike across every genre of personal style. I can't think of a single similar accessory that has that much staying power with such widespread appeal. I own several totes, and each one has its own distinct personality while essentially being true to the idea of the original tote bag. For example, I have a couple from Topology, which is a Japanese accessories brand, but the bag I keep returning to again and again is LL Bean's. Mine is a large in natural canvas. I use it to haul everything from groceries, my CrossFit gear, and computer and peripherals when I go to my co-working space. I'll even use it to go shopping, to eschew the shopping bags that stores typically provide. I think you can carry this bag around no matter what you're wearing, whether you're going to the beach or grubby sweats to get to the grocery store, or even your twice-a-week office casual outfits. And I think the reason why this is so is because of the bag's ubiquity and usefulness. It's classic, simple, easy to understand design that has lasted for many decades with little to no change. It's nearly impossible to destroy, and even when it becomes worn and starts fraying, it develops character that makes it even more appealing. This is the epitome of classic enduring style. You might not think much of using a bag like this, but for me, I love the idea that a simple $50 bag's design will never change and traces its workwear origins to folks who used it with purpose. Now, some of you might not be down with carrying this, and I totally get it. It's not for everyone. And for that reason, I'll share a link to an excellent article from GQ that provides alternative tote bag options that come in different colors, silhouettes, and materials. I'll also share some of my favorite non-LL Bean tote bag styles from different brands. All of it's in the description box below. Context is everything. So if you're a regular guy who's into workwear, it goes without saying that sometimes a little can go a long way, depending on where your day takes you. You might love Carhartt, for example, but wearing it head to toe into the office where you work as a marketing designer might seem a little incongruous. In some ways, it's akin to applying design styles inappropriately. Not to say that it can never work, but imagine looking at the menu of a high-end French restaurant and it looks kind of like this. Unless you actually work in a trade that demands specific workwear, wearing too much of it carries the danger of it looking like cosplay, and that might not be the intended effect you're after. So maybe balance the single Carhartt jacket with more understated neutral streetwear. So think about restraint, not a free-for-all, accents and not themes. Let the history and your reverence for these pieces speak quietly as opposed to screaming out loud. I think there are a lot of guys who struggle with trying to articulate their own sense of style, and this is actually one of the reasons why I wanted to talk about these workwear examples. I feel a personal connection with each one of them. When I stop to consider why chore coats, why corduroy? There's really something about their histories and ties to rigor and purpose that is very appealing to me and my core values. When I was looking through my closet, I realized I wanted to acknowledge that and find a way to talk about it in a meaningful way. And what does this accomplish? Well, for me, it helps me feel something with the choices that I make when I put on clothes and engage as a member of society. I'm proud of what I wear because they're intentional choices that connect with me on a personal level, and not just random garments whose only purpose is to cover my body. So, if you don't take away anything else from this video, understand that making personal connections with the clothes you wear will help you feel something deeper. You'll feel it, and it will become apparent to everyone else you engage with. And with that, my love letter to workwear comes to a close. So what about you? Do you have a lot of workwear? If you do, talk to me about what your favorite pieces are. What are they and why do you love them? How do you wear them? Share your thoughts in the comments below. As I mentioned earlier, I've added links to some of my favorite items from these workwear categories, so make sure you check that out. Thank you so much again for watching. Thank you for your support and staying with me this past year. And remember, stay true to your style and I will catch you in the next video. Bye!